happening, guys? Welcome to Monday. Another episode of The Precipice of Delusion in the world for you to listen to. Guys, how are you doing? How's the summer treating you? How was your 4th of July? Hopefully you didn't blow up your hand or your foot or your kneecap. Hopefully you didn't get hurt and you didn't get too intoxicated and you were safe and you had a good time. I hope that it was a pleasant holiday for every single person who's listening. I hope you guys had a really wonderful time. And I chilled. Rachel and I started the Game of Thrones series because we have 2 little puppies and they're little scared pups. And so it was hard to get out of the house because, we wanted to make sure that they were taken care of and not freaking out too much because it's sad, It's they get scared, especially out here. Like we live in Brooklyn and it is loud. There are fireworks next door to us that are just going crazy all night long. And honestly, for like a week straight, it's insane. But it was good. We started Game of Thrones. I'm starting it for my second time. It's so much easier to understand now with all the names, like when they start referring to each other, like, oh, the Targaryens and the Starks and these people, and we're going to kill the Lannisters. You're like, in the beginning, you're like, who the fuck are these guys talking about? And Rachel's definitely having that experience right now, but I am getting a completely different experience watching it the second time. It's great. I figured I'd share that with you because that's what we did on the 4th of July and chilled with the pups, made some poke bowls. I know it's not very American. We had a little Japanese American holiday. Just took it easy and are in the process of moving right now. So we're looking for a new place. We've got to be out at the end of the month. So August 1st, I'll have a new studio. I'll have a new space. Thanks to all the Patreon subscribers who are helping me with this new studio space that I'm trying to build out. If you guys want to participate in that, you can check out patreon.com/the precipice of delusion. Become a subscriber there. I just put up my first puppet show. Told you guys I was going to do that. I had an interview with my dad, Don Diego Gavilanes. I had a good time making that. It was funny. I had some people reach out to me and share some tips on how to be a puppet person, puppet master. It was really kind of charming because people were really like, hey, here's some like pro tips on how to, really work puppets because clearly you are not good at this job. But, practice only makes you better. So I'm going to keep doing it. I'm going to try to get a little bit more inventive with my approach. It was very fun. I have some movies on my Patreon page as well. My I America movie that I produced this last year and starred in and wrote. Also the Allentine's special that I did with Alan Stone, Teddy Swims, Tommy Cantillon. I got a lot of really wonderful guests coming on the show soon. I might be putting some new podcasts on the Patreon page as well. The exclusive podcasts so that you can listen to them. I did a podcast with Sun Little recently and I haven't aired it yet, and I might make it a Patreon combo for all of you who are listening. It's been fun. It's been crazy. We have this move happening, and it's going to be a little stressful, but it's all going to be good once we get settled in. So, guys, I am just excited. Summer's here, and we are having a good time. Listen up. I have a really special guest for you today. He is somewhat of a mentor, a good friend, and just a really insightful and inspiring man. His name is Rich Henkles. I met Rich through a friend of a friend. We got connected because he's just a really special guy, and somebody wanted to put me in touch with him. And we got in touch through his platform called the Actors Think Tank. He started a conversation with actors and other guests and celebrities and people and just creatives, kind of like this, kind of to talk about similar things. see how we stay in it. And he's a really great just person to share his knowledge and wisdom. He quit his very lucrative job when he was like 55 to pursue acting, and I think that there's something really special in his story about the narrative that it's never too late to start. Yeah, he's gone on to do a lot of really wonderful acting work in the recent years. He's just put his right foot forward and figured it out, and you can now see him on Blue Bloods and FBI. He produced and was the showrunner, created a show called Workforce that he's still in the process of trying to get greenlit and off the ground and financed. I'll put all that stuff in the show notes so that you can go on and check out how you can support Rich. He's an incredible guy. He's been very effective in his approach to becoming an actor, and I admire him dearly. He's also handsome AF. He is just like stone cold killer. Blue steel. He's just a total babe. And just a family man, really good guy, kind heart, wonderful spirit, and just a hard worker. He produced and created a documentary doing his Camino de Santiago, which is very inspirational and really wonderful. I checked it out, and he's just a really wonderful guy. Got a ton of insight, and I'm really grateful to know him. I feel like he's going to be in my life for a long time. Like I said in the beginning, he's somewhat of a mentor, and he just has a lot of really cool wisdom to share. And I was really excited to get to chat with him. And so let's get into it, guys. Why don't we? This is my talk with my good friend and somewhat of a mentor. Fuck it, he is a mentor. Rich Henkels. Dude, I'm great, man. A little sleepy-eyed, but
Yeah.
That's comes with the territory. I'm moving around a lot and doing a lot of things, and
That's good.
trying to stay ambitious and motivated and driven, and trying to find time to give myself space to relax, but that doesn't seem to be working very well. So
Imagine you're finding a way to do that, though, right?
Not super successfully, but it comes in waves. Sometimes it feels like I am like my body's actually shutting me down. It's like, dude, sorry, you can't do this today. Like, you're just actually needing to stop. I don't love that I have to wait till that happens to do it.
Yeah.
Because I would prefer to be someone who recognizes before like the actual physical shutdown needs to happen, that I can just take that time. But I'm working on it, man. It's all just a process in progress. I'm trying to figure out what's best for me as I go and as an artist. And I think, something that this podcast has been really awesome at kind of illuminating for me is, one, that I'm not alone in feeling this way, in kind of my like crazed energy all over the place feelings, but also that in order to kind of move outside of this space, I really need to start learning how to place my energy outside of it, outside of the thing that I'm in pursuit of, which is the art, which is the acting, which is the podcasting, the movie making, the whole career aspect of it all. And if I can place value outside of that, actually, then I can start to, kind of develop a new self-worth in other areas that aren't just here. And then I can kind of like take it a little bit easier on myself.
Yeah.
But easier said than done.
Everything in life, easier said than done.
Everything in life.
Only a few things that are easy. So.
What are those things? Because if you're going to do them well, I'd still think they're hard.
Things that are done with the heart are easy.
Yeah.
because you're not second guessing them, you know.
Yeah.
And that's a hard thing for a lot of people to do. The battle between the heart and the mind that's the everlasting struggle that people have.
Yeah.
You know, my heart tells me one thing, my mind tells me another. We got logic versus emotion. We got all those other conflicts. So
Hmm.
you have to. It's not like you have to decide which to follow as a general rule, but you certainly have to know what part is more um, intelligently intuitive than the other with regard to some things. Like you get 5 auditions and you only have a chance. You only have time to do two really really well.
Hmm.
So something has to tell you which ones,
Yeah.
or you only have so many hours in a day. But you're a high energy guy, so your temptation is try to get it all done and not worry, and then by the time you get to the sixth thing, you're exhausted and you're not going to turn in the self tape response. You're not going to be the friend you want to be. You're not going to be all those things. You know what I mean? You're not gonna ring the bell each time because you're
Right.
out of energy. And being able to determine what to really focus on, you have to rule some things out. That's all there is to it. That's my opinion.
Yeah, I mean it's totally true, man. You're very right, and one of the big reasons why I want to chat with you is because you just are a man of wisdom, and you have a handful of years on me, and you also kind of entered this profession much later on,
Mm-hmm.
and you had a whole wealth of life experiences that kind of brought you to it at the age that you kind of wound up jumping in.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I find that to be really admirable and something that a lot of people can kind of like gravitate towards and feel inspired by as well. Because especially for me, I know we were talking on the phone the other day, and I was talking about like when I got into acting, I was 24,
Mm-hmm.
and I thought that was really late. I was like, oh man, like I'm really late to the game. All these young kids have been doing it since they were teenagers and this and that. But I did it regardless, and I'm glad I did. Uh, Especially because I had some. I wasn't just a kid jumping into this thing. I did have some life experience. Not much, but a little bit more than what a kid would have.
Yeah.
And I think that kind of thing really propelled me into this thing in a more pragmatic way than what I would have had I been a child jumping into this. And
Mm-hmm.
I always kind of like looked at people who were in this that I admired that got into it when they were 30. Like I told you, Mark Ruffalo, started when he like bartended in New York for 9 years, and then he finally like hit it when he was 30. So I was like, oh man, cool. Like, well, now 30's passing me by, and fuck, I didn't get it. So like, okay, well now who's next? Like Morgan Freeman didn't start in his career till he was 52. So maybe I can, and I was always doing that with myself. And at a certain point I was just like, what am I doing? Like, why am I comparing myself to these people? But at the same time, it's like the notion that it's never too late to start is really true. And I feel like there's something really kind of groundbreaking about the people who go back to college when they're in their in their later adulthood, because and they show up and they're actually ready to do it. They're actually there for a purpose with intention,
Mm-hmm.
and they do great, whereas they wouldn't have done anything had they have just come straight out of high school and gone to this thing. And
Mm-hmm.
I just kind of wonder, like, if you can take us on a little journey of how you kind of came to the decision at whichever age it was that you decided to jump into being an actor, being a filmmaker, being an artist, essentially, because I know that that wasn't where you were previously. Um, and yeah, if you could just kind of take us on that journey, and then we can kind of go from there, man.
All right. Well, the truth is, you're looking at Rich Henkels 3.0 because I knew as a kid and growing up and then in college that I wanted to be a sportscaster. So I went to Boston College, Whitman College first, Boston College second, and got a degree in broadcast journalism. And I was at BC when Doug Flutie was there, and
Oh,
some
cool.
basketball teams. And so I got into radio there. And when I graduated, I had, having grown up in Utah, I drove across the country looking for my first job. Literally drove across the country looking for my first job. I interviewed in Schenectady, Albany, Dayton, Ohio, Topeka, Kansas, all the hot spots. And got to Utah, didn't have a job, got a part-time job at J.C. Penney selling suits. Eventually got a first job in Pocatello, Idaho, and as a reporter, and then ultimately I got a sports job from that. But I spent 15 years chasing a dream that I had as a kid, and I loved it. It was wonderful being a sportscaster in 5 different markets. I used to tell my parents I get to go to ball games, and then people tell people what I think of them. How good is that?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so it was very, very cool. And I did well too. I mean, I won an Emmy Award, and I did some other things that were really, really valuable.
Wow.
And that was the measuring stick at the time, and still
Sure.
is. And but funny thing happened. The industry changed a lot, and the emphasis on hiring shifted a fair amount. I think if you look at daily newscasts or sportscasts on any TV station in America now, you could see what I'm talking about. And I understand it, I get it, but there was changes, and I kind of realized that at my stage of life in my mid 30s, with a small child and a new wife, that I wasn't going to make it to the big time. So it was time to shift.
Let
And
me let me pause you right there. Like how I'm always curious how people like get the have the wherewithal to recognize that, because like this is what this whole podcast is about, like delusion, right? To be delusional enough to believe that you can is kind of like a requirement. And so like at that point, I admire people who are able to be like, you know what, this isn't going the right direction, so I'm redirecting and I'm going to change course. How did you know that, especially when you said spent so much time putting that energy in?
well, there were 3 ways that I knew. One, I was applying to jobs all over the country to major markets.
Just actually wasn't happening.
It wasn't happening. The
Yeah.
second thing was I had a phone call with the hiring manager at ESPN. And when I said, hi, this is Rich Henkels. You don't know me. He said, oh, yes, I know you very well. And I said, oh,
Mm.
because I've seen your tapes through the years, and you're very, very talented, but you'll never work here at ESPN. And I went, oh. And I said, well, and he goes, you're not our type. And I went, oh, huh. And then the third thing was this. I would edit late at night and write late at night. I was doing magazine shows and all kinds of things for the TV station I worked at. And I loved doing it, but I would get home, and my young son, who at the time was like 6 months old, would be crying at 2 o'clock in the morning. And I'd get up, and my wife was going off to bed and off to work in the morning. So I was working 18-hour days and being up early with my son. And I realized I've got to make a choice here. The industry isn't giving me anything except for signs, and I want to be a dad. So those are the 3 things that made me realize this is the change I need to make in my life. So
Wow.
I turned my back on that dream and put my emphasis on raising a family and getting a job that would enable me to do that.
Sounds responsible of you.
It was, yeah. I mean, yeah. In a perfect world, it's very, very responsible. It was soul sucking, but it was very, very responsible. And at the time, it was the right decision. You know.
Did it shatter you a bit?
Um, yeah. It's kind of it was great at the time. Period. I didn't know what I was going to do. Eventually, I got a job working for my family's business, which is a very, very large company, and I ended up selling their technology for almost 20 years. Which was financially rewarding for sure.
Mm-hmm.
I traveled a lot. I did a lot of things that were kind of cool, but it was not emotionally. In fact, it was very emotionally draining because sales is lots and lots and lots of rejection, and rejection's okay if you're in charge and you can make the changes you need to make in order to minimize the rejections. But I wasn't in a position in my organization to make the changes that I thought our clients needed us to make, and so almost 20 years in, I ended up resigning from that job. Now, it's important to note about 3 years prior to that, I felt something shift in me that I was not utilizing my creative skills and desires. My emotions were not in my work. So I needed to find some way to get those out to the world.
Hmm.
Not that the world cared. It wasn't about the world for me as much as I want to give. And so I did some radio work, and a friend and I created a radio show here in Philadelphia, which went pretty well. And I produced it while I was doing the other jobs. So there was a lot of balancing of my time and energy. My kids were both in high school at the time. One was graduating from Syracuse, and so I was kind of balancing a few things. But I kind of felt that this was the sign. So when I quit, I didn't have a paying job, and the radio show wasn't making any money. But somebody asked me about modeling. I did a modeling gig or two, and then all of a sudden, I got an agent, and a couple commercials popped up, and then got on backstage and started doing a couple short films, and I realized, I think I've found the path, you know. But there was a period in there where I really wasn't sure what the path was going to be, and
Wow.
all the while, it was a matter of sometimes you just got to open yourself up and let the world tell you where you're supposed to go.
Sounds like it.
And that's exactly what I did. I just kind of opened up, and from there, I did see it. I had a couple of visions that I did want to pursue, and I continued to pursue.
Were you kind of waiting until do you think in retrospect you were waiting until your kids were old enough to kind of be independent for you to pursue something that would be a little bit riskier, that would, have creative associations to it, because it was actually always something you wanted to do, but you just, because you're responsible, you just decided not to? Was it kind of like, okay, now they're grown, like I'm ready? It sounds like it kind of came to you, but also like I wonder how much of that 20-year span you were like itching.
Well, I was lucky because as a people person, and you're a people person, your creative juices can be released in other ways, and I did that. I mean, I coached for years in Little League and CYO basketball. I
Cool.
volunteered a lot at some things, and I felt like I, I was activated, and I felt pretty good about who I was and what I was doing. But I will be honest with you. The other thing too is I love my clients to this day. I mean, I've been out of the business 8 years, and I still talk to 3 or 4 of my customers.
Oh, cool.
We did great work for them, and
Yeah.
in the end, that job was about financial security and comfort and taking care of my kids. And I was able to pay for their college. They graduated with no debt. So they're
Wow.
able to pursue their careers and do the things. So I think there was an element of responsibility for sure. My creative juices were satisfied to a degree by the other things I was doing. And, putting together presentations and selling strategies was kind of rewarding for a little while. But there was
Hmm.
a point where when I knew that I wasn't going to ever be in charge and be able to make the changes in that organization that the clients were telling me we needed to make, that's when I just said, no, I can't do this. And there was a penultimate moment at a dinner table. My brother lived with me at the time. He's a year younger than me. And my 2 sons and I were sitting there. It was a Sunday night dinner. And my brother and I were complaining about work. And I looked at my 2 sons, and they were rolling their eyes. And I turned to my brother. I said, we're done. We're never talking about work at the dinner table again. Never.
Hmm.
Because I realized that's not what my sons needed to see or hear. I want them to have a dream and chase a dream. And if they don't have a dream, open themselves up to see what dreams make themselves available and
Hmm.
catch their imagination. And that was the moment. It was a Sunday night. And so I ended up hiring somebody to help me visualize what I wanted to do. And I spent 2 years in phone calls with this guy every week for a while. It was useful because it got me off my personal track and onto
Yeah.
what I was naturally tending to do, to a programmatic way of approaching this professional and personal challenge. And it worked to a degree. And then one day I dialed onto his call just about 10 minutes late because I was tied up in a meeting, and he did not pick up. And that person never returned another phone call from me.
Hmm.
And I realized, I guess my time with him is done.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was off and running after I made the decision, and my last day at that job was my mother's birthday, and my
Oh,
mother's
wow.
it was the best birthday gift she ever got because
That you were leaving.
yes, now she knew I was going to, for lack of any other metaphor, spread my wings.
Oh man, that's so moving and cool and just like yeah, such a kind of makes me emotional hearing that your mom and like where were you at in life? Like how old were you at that point? You were like in your 40s?
No, when I left, 55,
Wow.
55. Yeah.
Dude, that's so cool. I remember one of like the most empowering moments I ever had um was with my mom where I was this is previous to deciding I wanted to act and I was going through all of these interviews to get a job in life insurance sales
Uh-uh.
and I was so like just lost and had no kind of direction for where I wanted to be and I got a little lead with this like life insurance agency and in retrospect, I realized like what they were doing. Like that's what they do for everybody. They just pull you in and they try to recruit you and get you. And I went on like 7 interviews with these people, and
Yeah.
I was just like desperately trying to find something to like put my energy into, and I just didn't. I didn't have anything, and I wanted to make money. I wanted to like have a life going, and I was probably like 23 or 22, 23 or something at the time,
Mhm.
and I remember like on my like seventh and final interview, I came home and I was kind of like dragging my feet, and my mom was just like, "How you doing? How's it going?" I was like, "Yeah, it's pretty good. Like I think I'm gonna like take this job and I'm gonna do like I'm gonna make a lot of money and I'm gonna like they're showing us these videos where they're like driving nice cars and they're going to Cancun with each other and drinking mai tais on the beach and like it looks pretty sweet, mom. Like I think this is gonna be a cool gig." And she said, "Honey, I'm going to give you $5,000 so that you can pay off whatever debts you need to pay off and put some money towards actually pursuing something that you want to be doing because I know that this is not where you're supposed to be." And I had no idea she knew that. I didn't know. She just gave me this money and said, "Please, for the love of God, don't do this. I don't have a lot, but I have this.
Mhm.
And if this can help you," which at the time, $5,000 is like $500,000. So I was just like, "This is the most money I've ever had in my life," and it totally redirected me and made me like one recognize that I had the support, which was huge, and two just kind of gave me the resources to shift and like kind of reposition myself. And sometimes I think just having that support, like what you said, your mom was just like so you know pumped for you
Yeah.
to be out of there. That means a lot, and I think like it can really fuel those kinds of decisions once you just have like one little grain of support or like encouragement from anybody's like, "Oh, really? Like I thought this was going to be crazy for me to make this decision or to do something different like this."
Mhm.
And it just takes that one little thing, that one little like boost of confidence and that one person maybe even to just be like, "Hey, go for it."
Yeah.
And yeah, it's just like it's so beautiful that like your whole trajectory can just shift so quickly after so much time doing something completely different. Do
Well,
you remember? Go ahead, go ahead.
it ends up being a cornerstone
Yeah.
of your life. And you got to remember, I mean, a cornerstone, that's just not a description of a physical thing. It's the reality of it. You take the cornerstone out of anything and it collapses. And I remember, and so for my mother passed away in 2019, and I had made my move in 2016. So for 3 years, every time I went to New York for an audition, my mother had grown up in Flushing, Queens.
Cool.
Every time I came back from New York from an audition, I would oftentimes just call them. They lived in Utah, which is where I grew up, and I would call. My mom would pick up the phone. "Hey, what are you up to?" And I'd say, "Well, I just wanted to call you. I'm on the train back from New York, and I had an audition. Oh, what were you doing?" And I would give her a brief description, and I said, "But guess what I saw? I walked by Macy's. You know that big sign you love so much when you used to live there? She goes, oh, that's a beautiful building. And I was just feeding my mom so. And my mom and dad were, and my dad was equally supportive. I don't want to just give it all to my mom, but they were the cornerstones, the corner.
Ah, for
And
sure, man.
yeah, when they passed, and my dad passed 2 years after my mom did, it was, everything's a bit shaky, and that's something that's worth noting is that those emotional cornerstones, without them, we can't do what we do. We're a house of cards. And there are many, many times in my day to day life where I feel like a house of cards. I literally do. No matter how good I do something, how well, what I've booked, I've got a really good month coming up right now. Commercials and a couple of films and a bunch of other things. But I'm a house of cards emotionally because I'm still looking for that, the foundation, that filler to slide back into the cornerstone once they left. That's it.
Yeah.
God bless them. Well, God.
That's amazing, man. I think we're all. Uh, I mean, I can't speak for everybody, but
Mm-hmm.
from the conversations that I've been having lately, it seems relative that we're all kind of a house of cards. Um, and sometimes, yeah, we're trying to fill that void. If your parents aren't here anymore to give you that support and to kind of boost you that way, and to be that cornerstone for you when you need it. Where do you seek that elsewhere? How do you find that in yourself ultimately? Like
Mm-hmm.
how do you muster up the for lack of better words, like self-love and appreciation for your own pursuit and your own space and just who you are and what you're doing to really like continue to get up and be like,
Yeah.
like yes, like because it's the most challenging thing, especially with all of the no's and not even the no's, but just the silence. Like you're working so hard at something that doesn't feel like you're giving so much love to this thing, and it doesn't feel like it's reciprocating at all.
Well, it's interesting because it can't reciprocate in any way, shape, or form
Hmm.
unless you get booked. And
Mm-hmm.
that's why we reshape our mindsets. And we met you through Actors Think Tank, and
Yeah.
every guest we've had in Actors Think Tank in 4 years has told us the same thing. Your job is to audition. So if you get an opportunity to audition, you have won.
Mm-hmm.
You as an actor or performer cannot take that reality and believe deeply in it, knowing full well that there's no money coming from an audition.
Right.
But the audition is the win. You need to find a way to let that become your source of assurance, self assurance,
Mm-hmm.
confidence, and all those other things. That is not an easy thing to do because in
Right.
everyone else's world, the victory comes with some financial reward. So there's that, first of all. So here's what I think is it's kind of been, and I audition as much as anybody I know, but you lose so many more than you win. I have kind of determined. I'm single. My kids don't live with me. One lives in Philly, where I live, and but downtown, and the other lives in L.A. And
Mm-hmm.
I I live a pretty solitary life. And what I have found is that my life is incomplete without others. You have relationships, and I've had some. I had a 4.5 year relationship that was good as gold, and when it ended, for reasons out of my control, there's a gap.
Mm-hmm.
And you meet somebody else, and you spend some time with them, and you might latch on to what that makes you feel. But if it doesn't last, you're still back to one thing, and that is yourself. And somehow, some way, we all have to find peace in our own souls. Who we are is good enough. What we are is good enough, and there's victory to be had. And I'm convinced. Last thought here in this oratory is that the best thing to do is to give, not
Yeah.
to give to everyone else, which is where Actors Think Tank came from.
Totally, man.
My eyes light up when I don't like stupid questions from people in our group because we go over things all the time. If you're asking me a question that's been answered 35 times already by our guests, I know one thing. you're not listening.
Yeah.
But when you call me and you have another concern or issue or question or just a soft spot in your heart that needs to be healed, that's where I find my solace, giving and being somebody that somebody can. And you've met those people. Many of them
Totally.
call me up, and I love it because that's what fulfills me in these other
Mhm.
times, in these other ways. And you have to have that.
It's hard. It's hard to recognize that being of service to others is where you'll get your self-esteem, where you'll get that boost of self-love and gratification in this world, because we're so kind of like laser focused on the thing that we think we're supposed to acquire in order to kind of like get to where we need to be successful.
Mm-hmm.
So it's hard to see out of like your own peripheral
Beyond the
vision.
blinders.
Say it
Beyond
again.
beyond the blinders.
Yeah. And it's something that I am reminded of every time I do something of service to others, that of course that's what it is.
Mm-hmm.
Of course.
Yeah.
Why do I spend so much time trying to be like in service of myself? I mean, I get it. I understand why we do this, and we have to a certain degree. But finding those lanes for yourself to do that, like you have with Actors Think Tank, um, and with everything else that you do, just with me and this friendship that we have built over the last year or two, just from having been on that show,
Mm-hmm.
and utilizing each other as resources, and then just chatting, just talking about like, hey man, I'm struggling a little bit. It's just like being there for each other, and supporting each other through tough times and good times, and all across the spectrum.
Mm-hmm.
It's truly the most uh, powerful act we can do in just helping each other. And I had a podcast before this one with a friend who, him and I just talked shit and just like we just were stupid and didn't have any like real
Yeah.
purpose to what we were doing. It was just a fun thing to do. And this now feels a lot more rewarding in that, one, I am selfishly learning so much about how other people navigate this space
Mm-hmm.
of the in between. And also, I really feel like it is going to be of service to so many people who listen, because there are so many young people that are or people all across the board that are just like trying to get into this world,
Yeah.
and they have false hope, or they have like misguided direction. They don't know how they're supposed to get into this. They have this expectation that they haven't learned how to manage yet.
Yeah.
And being able to recognize that, like, hey, this is clichély a marathon, not a sprint.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to be prepared to undergo a lot of emotional hardship.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to know how to have tenacity and fortitude. Go ahead, man. I know
Yeah,
you
no,
have time.
it's a very good point. But I think one of the funny things is that this is where you asked me earlier. You alluded to the fact that I'd had other careers, right?
Mm-hmm.
And but I will say that the things that I learned in those other careers enabled me to embrace this more effectively from the very, very beginning.
Mm-hmm.
Because in those other
Totally.
careers, I mean, as a sportscaster, there were things I had to do continuously the same way every day and do them well in order to get a newscast on the air, in order to get coaches to respond to me, in order to line them up for an interview for a newscast. All these things, I mean, they're just dominoes that I had to set up every single day. And as a salesperson, same thing. And the other thing I learned is you have to follow directions. When in the tech world, or any world really, where you're putting together proposals and responses to proposal RFPs and that kind of thing, you have to follow the directions. If the customer says they want things, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and you give them A and F and G and say, hey, I'm still looking at these others, then you're incomplete.
Mm-hmm.
I learned that you got to follow directions and you have to do it right and you have to do it in a manner that is going to meet the requirements of the people that are demanding this, right? And
Yeah.
by the way,
Right.
we're not doing it to be jerks. We're
Right.
doing it because that's what their business requires. That's what their
Yeah.
world requires. So when I got into this, I realized I have to do all the little things the best way I possibly can, regular as rain, and not violate the rules of the industry. Don't get anything in late. Follow directions. Do it cleanly. I mean,
Yeah.
in my studio behind me in my dining room, my studio, same room. I've got 3 color backgrounds. I've got good lighting. Why? So that I can do a full body shot, so that I can do a profile shot, so that I can do a green screen, a gray screen, a blue screen.
Yeah.
All of these things that they need, because guess what? If they ask for 5 different shots, how many different shots do I got to give them? I got to give
Yeah.
them 5.
Yeah. Give him
I
5.
know that. And so now I'm doing all these little things. And so the point really gets down to this, that all the experience from my previous life helps me to understand the importance of adherence to what are very difficult industry demands of an actor. Because
Yeah.
almost everything we do comes without the full final reward of a booking.
Totally.
We get our bookings, but that's the end result of a whole lot of not getting our bookings. And I think that's a lot of younger actors don't get that. They
Mm-hmm.
ask, why do they need that? Don't ask.
Mm-hmm.
It, you have no idea why they need that. Wardrobe might need it. HMU might need it. The director
Right.
might need it. The people doing this the character generation, CGI, might need it. Right? There are all these
Yeah.
things that you can't begin to know. And by the way, they don't have to answer your questions because
Of course.
265 other people who look just like you.
And not only do they not have to, but they most likely won't. Anyways.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so there's a finality to it all that you have.
Totally. Are you happy? I mean, you can't go back in time and change anything, but like, I think just hearing you talk about your experience prior to getting into all of this, it really sets you up to manage your expectations better, to be more pragmatic in your thought process of how to approach all of this stuff, to not be like, where's my agent's not calling me right now, like this casting director didn't like tell me that I did a good job on this audition, like what like these things. I'll speak for myself. I had to learn the hard way. I would send 8-page emails to agents just being like, listen up, dude. I'm really needing to like learn. We need to help each other here. Like and this is what I need from you. And it's just like, dude, shut up. Like, you just, first of all, like reduce this down to one paragraph first and foremost, and
Exactly.
secondly, like just stop, take a breath, and be patient.
Mm-hmm.
But I had to learn that from like I didn't know the etiquette of this business. I didn't know the etiquette of any business because I was a kid. I didn't know. And so for you to have spent so much time in sales and in business and just in life, like learning about who you were, you almost come at an advantage because you're entering this space being like, yeah, I know who I am. I mean, sure, I don't because we're always evolving and growing, but I'm I'm settled in myself. I have the resources to do these things, the tools, the financial situation. I'm good. Like I can get myself set up. I know how to follow direction. I'm a responsible human being who gets it. And that is currency to an agent or a manager or a casting director. Just like, sometimes you see a breakdown for a role that comes through and they're like, okay, now that it's all self-taped and stuff, they give you so many little directions and you're just like, God, who are they telling this to? Like dumb kids who don't know how to do that, and it's just like, what are they like? How are you like devoting your whole life to this and still don't understand these very
Mm-hmm.
simple like tasks that you need to abide by in order to like actually get this gig?
Mm-hmm.
But I wonder if like you wish now in retrospect, of course you can't go back, but like, do you wish that you could have started a little earlier? Or are you very just totally like happy that it happened when it happened for you the way that it did?
That is a great question because I don't know. I don't know that I can answer it because
Right.
when I'm good. I'm like financially, I'm in okay shape. I mean, I'm not the richest man in the world, but I'm divorced, and
Yeah.
I can do what I do because I prepared myself to do it. And I don't know if 10 years earlier I would have been prepared to do it. In fact, I know I wouldn't have been, and it would have been more of a struggle, and it would have impacted my kids. So the timing of it was what it was for me because of the circumstances of my life.
Hmm.
And in terms of accomplishments since, so I recently booked and was on Blue Bloods and FBI, two CBS series.
That's me applauding.
Thank you.
Oh
To
yeah.
be honest, it took 7 years of manifesting to get on Blue Bloods.
Yeah.
I auditioned, I don't know how many times, 8, 10 maybe.
Insane.
And I had a vision. There was a manifest there. I'll keep the details of that to myself, but there was a manifestation there that came up. And when I actually booked the job, I was like so happy because I had done the things I needed to do. I had connected with the casting directors. I had, been in their one-on-one workshops. I had done all these things. I'd actually had them on Actors Think Tank. I'd done some things to make sure these connections were real. And I was taking classes and learning my craft and blah 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 blah. And then FBI, same thing. The people who cast me in that, I had known them a little bit from another casting agency, that Jonathan Strauss. So it was Bowling Misha for Blue Bloods and Jonathan Strauss for FBI.
Shout out, Bowling Misha and Jonathan Strauss.
Yep.
Keep hiring us.
Yeah. Well, yeah. More than that, though, keep considering it.
Totally.
That's
Right.
where it comes down to. I mean, and they're going to consider people that A, they trust, and B, keep working on the craft.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But I look at it now, and it took 8 years to get real material that I now can put out there in front of anybody and say,
Mhm.
I can fit on your set, whether it's a show or a film. Yeah, I'm responsible. Yeah, I'm professional. I'm not going to ask the stupid question. They're not going to sit me down. I laughed. Here's a funny story at the FBI shoot. So I show up. I'm a day player, okay, and
Yeah.
one line, but it's a monologue, and it's in the penultimate scene of the show, and I'm at the forefront of the scene, but because the stars are the really people they're focused on, when the final edit comes out, you only see me for 3 seconds at a time. My voice is going the entire time. But what's funny, they bring me on the set, and then they walk me down and they sit me in one of those director's chairs. You've done this, right? And they say, here you sit down, relax, and there's 6 other chairs there, and 3 of them are for the stars that are on this particular scene, and the 2 others are for a guest star and a co-star, and they're sitting there too, I said to myself, this is so cool. I would love to walk around and check out the entire scene. Da, 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 da. But in the moment, I knew, and I always knew, that no, there's a reason why this chair is here, and the reason why they sat me here. Because at any time when they damn well need to, the director needs to know where to find it. And if I'm that, I'll just say it, 25-year-old newbie in the industry who just lucked into a role, decide to go over to Crafty or decide to walk over there and say, or go, say hello to somebody or whatever.
Take selfies with the lead.
And I'm not in that chair, I'm not doing my job. The director needs to be able to find me, and so does the second AD, and so all these people. And that was like one of those moments where I go, okay, and I get this. I get this whole scene. They never have to worry about it. But it took me years to get to the point where I now have material that I can put out there. And I'm really happy with that, the professional side of things. I struggle with is the balance of life. That is my personal struggle, the balance of life. I'm one of 12 kids, Julian. And
one of 12?
Yes. I have 11
Whoa.
sisters. And
where do you fit in there?
Well, I really don't fit in at all. I'm 8th, actually, in the order. And
jeez, dude, that sounds crazy.
Yeah, and but I'm a family man through and through, which is where the irony is, because I'm single, and I was divorced 20 some years ago, and I've had my share of relationships, but for me, life is about being with people, completely being with people, and on set I'm with people. But you sit in your house and you're shooting self tapes a lot, and there's self-tapes. The word self is pretty apparent. It's pretty real.
Yeah. Yeah.
I have to look at the choices that I made. I chose a business that requires calls for you to be alone a lot.
Right.
That's the challenge. So I sometimes do ask myself, I wonder if I should find a part-time job or something where I can socialize again, because
Yeah.
that's it's a real challenge in our world. Look at you. You're sitting in your little studio, right?
Isolated.
Yep.
Yeah, man. Yeah, it's lonely for sure, without question.
Mm-hmm.
And again, managing the expectations around like, okay, cool. Like, you think of when you, it's so funny because when you think about being an actor, when you originally conceive of the thought, you're like, oh man, like I'm going to be on sets. I'm going to be working. I'm going to be getting to work with, my heroes. I'm going to be doing this. You just fantasize, right? I'm going to buy a boat. I'm going to fucking get my Cadillac. It's just all these things. And then when you really start to get into it and stick with it and stay inside of it, you realize that like the actual work of acting is 0.1% of the workload that actually goes into being a working actor. And I talk about it a lot. Like I talk about being a blue collar guy in this business. I'm a union guy. I literally feel like I kind of like punch in, punch out. Like I am like almost like a like a metal worker or something. Like it feels like that sometimes because I'm just putting in my work and I'm like getting in my reps by going to acting class. I'm doing like, it's just like going to the gym and working out and investing back into it and blood, sweat and tears kind of thing. Obviously this isn't as hard of work as metalworking. Like this isn't as like the physical labor of it all isn't as hard, but the emotional weight certainly is devastating at times. And it's really, really tough to reconcile with the reality that it's such a small amount of time spent actually doing the thing, and everything else is trying to figure out how to get back to that thing. And so, I get stuck a lot in just like, yeah, this isolated space of being like, okay, like what can I be doing today to better serve my career? What can I be doing to evolve my artistry? What can I be doing? What can I be doing? It's just like this ongoing question of like, how much more? How much more? How much more?
Well, it's interesting though, Julian. You bring up an interesting point, and that is that I think a lot of people do what you just described.
For
How much
sure.
more can I do? And when you do that, you fall victim to the one thing you can't afford to do, and that is not do the basics each and every time.
Hmm.
You know what I mean?
Totally.
I'm Phi Corps. I was union, but I had to go Phi Corps because my revenue stream is from new media work that doesn't want anything to do with SAG, and I can't give up my revenue stream. So
I have some friends who are like that, man, and it's like it's always by design. It's not like, oh, I'm fight for it because I can't get into the union. You're doing it on purpose.
well, and to me, it's a choice I had to make. I
Of
didn't
course.
know, and I wrote a letter to SAG, and it is what it is. But I've got green screens back there, and there's my stuff is on people's websites, and I'm
Hmm.
a spokesperson for this and a spokesperson for that, and there's UGC out there with me, and that's largely how I pay my bills. I mean, until I get
Yeah.
a recurring guest star type role or something that I can really put some money in the bank with, this is what I got to do. And I realize every single day that, and I got a buddy who you probably met through Actors Think Tank, Mike Provenzano. And
Hmm.
Mike, Mike just sets up dominoes and knocks them down all day long. He never forgets step one. He's submitting. He's updating his headshots. He's updating his reels. He's updating. In other words, he goes back to the very basic things each and every day. And I'll just go back to this. I remember my mother's morning routines. And the reason why she was a hellacious human being was because her morning routines, her way of living was gospel to her. To violate that, well, it would be the end of it.
Sacrilegious.
It was sacrilegious completely. And she did everything each day the same way. Because by again, it goes down to those cornerstones. If you don't have to second guess the cornerstone because you're going to do it every single day, then you know that you're going to, when those other things come up, the need to do something more, well, you've got all the foundation built. And that's what I have to do. I constantly pay attention to that. I mean, you're right.
Yeah.
But I always tell people, avoid the bright, shiny object. Just because you just talk to somebody who got into voiceover, you know, don't go buy a whisper room.
Yeah.
It's an incredibly competitive world.
Yes.
Unless you really know what you're doing, it's going to take years to break through. Unless you're really fortunate, or
Yeah.
you can do cartoon voices or something like that, right?
Yeah.
Avoid the bright
Except
object.
accepting that I wasn't the exception to the rule, but somehow still exceptional in my own regard was a really like important thing for me to kind of like do for myself.
Yeah.
Because, I think everybody that gets into this to some degree feels like, oh, I'm going to be the exception to the rule. Like I'm going to like make it quick. I'm going to get the lucky break. I'm the guy. We all think that about ourselves. And that's the precipice of delusion, right? That we're all walking on. It's just like, well, of course I think I'm special. Of course I think I'm excellent.
Yeah.
The reality is you are. But like that doesn't have to translate to like being the biggest star. It translates to who you are uniquely and what you do, what you bring to the table, and how you approach this from a professional space. Like it's taken me the better part of a decade to really figure out how to be a professional in this industry and to really manage my expectations. And that's really the whole thing. Like I tell younger people that are going onto these sets that are showing up, it's like at a certain level, when you're booking smaller parts on television and stuff, like yes, talent is wonderful to have, but they just want somebody that they can trust to go onto that set and not be a total dipshit, not be taking selfies with the characters, not be out there on your phone, not be like hanging out at craft service when the director needs you, like knowing your role. Like you have one job to do when you like that's this common misperception when you show up and you start doing like co-stars on television. You have a trailer, you're getting into makeup, you're getting your wardrobe fitting, you feel really special and you're like, oh my God, look at me. Like I wanted to be an actor. Here I am on a network television show, getting to be an actor. I got lines, I'm going to do stuff. And you like feel really pumped up. Your chest is all out. You're like, oh man, I'm getting to act. By the end of the day, you're like, nobody cares about me at all. Like they hired me to come here and to be an accessory to this actual world that they're creating, to show up and do my job and get out of the way.
That's right. And
But like be there and be prepared for when they need me and then get out of the way when they don't need me anymore. And like if you can just approach it by like don't bring your cell phone onto set. When you're done with your day, like hang up your wardrobe, like put it back on the hangers and like put it there neatly for the wardrobe department. Like these little tiny things are things that people just don't think about. Like they're just like out there taking pictures of themselves in their like director's chair being like, I can't wait to post. And I've been that guy, I had to learn the hard way of being like, oh, I'm such an asshole. Like I'm not doing this right. I know there's a compulsion to want to like share this with the world and to, tell everybody in your circles that like, I am doing this. You want to feel that excitement from your peers and the people. You want to showcase that like you've finally done something of value. But it's like, there's a way to go about this. And I think your advantage is that you entered this already knowing all of that from just being a professional in the beginning of it all. And so you say now it's just trying to find the balance of life and this and all of these things. And yeah, that's the real hardest part. And I think for me, they were compartmentalized. My life and my career were just like two completely separate things. And realistically, like my life wasn't even a thing because it was my career that was my life.
yeah,
And so I'm curious now, like what you mean by that. Like where do you balance your life, uh, kind of like outside of this work and this pursuit, and how do you find ways to keep joy at the forefront of the experience? Because I know you've gone on to make projects. You started the Actors Think Tank, which is hugely empowering to everybody that contributes to it, everybody that participates in it. You're a doer. You're like me. You go out. You made this documentary where you walk the Camino de Santiago spiritual journey. I hope I can share that.
Yeah.
Um, you do things all the time. You're always kind of like putting your right foot in front of the next. These are things that you're doing creatively for career pursuits, but like how do you find your balance in the in between of it all? Like what are you doing for yourself to keep that level head?
Well, that's all about people.
Mm.
You know, I have got a very good family. I wish somebody lived in Philly or nearby because I miss my family. I mean, there's
Mm.
11 of us other than me, and they're in 5 different states. And there's 3 of us, 4 of us that live, isolated away from the others, and we talk quite a bit on the phone. And my kids and I, we're very, very close. But the truth is, I get to LA maybe 4 times a year. And when I'm there, it's pretty much committed to business related things, of course. But then dinner with my son, or if it's a weekend, do something, and we love that. And my son here in Philly, I mean, just last night we were at a Phillies game together with 2 of his
Oh,
friends.
cool.
I tagged along. I just went down
Mm.
on my own, and I texted them, said I'm going to be there, and they told me where they'd be, so I caught up with them. But so
You're
what
cool, Dad. You're cool, Dad. They want you around.
well, you don't know. You like to think, but the truth is, it's all uncertain. And with relationships, I mean, I got to be honest. That's been a test for me because I committed when I got divorced years ago. I really did commit myself to just being a good dad, and taking care of
Mm.
the kids, and putting them in a situation where their college was taken care of, and other things. And I'm not patting myself on the back. My parents would have did the same things for me, and as a result, I never got remarried or anything like that. I had a few relationships, but the relationship side of it is very challenging to me because, frankly, I'm a giver. I just want to give. I'm willing to surrender a lot of elements of my life for the right person.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a hole there. There's a real hole there, and that's the balance that I struggle with. It's the reason why I went and did the Camino. A couple things, corresponded at the same time. The relationship was needed to take a break, and I understood it, and I had been dreaming about doing that for many, many years. So the opportunity to do this Camino came, and I went and decided to take my camera, and in the end, I had a 32-minute documentary that I like and I'm proud of, and it's
It's
out.
beautiful, man. It's really beautiful and touching.
Mhm.
I loved it.
Thank you. Well, I may do another one soon because I'm kind of moving into this summer with the same kind of you know questions in my life, and ultimately, if you don't do something, you do nothing. And if
Yes.
you do nothing, you die
Mm-hmm.
emotionally or whatever. And I'm one of those people. I refuse that. It's hard, the mornings are, I don't know if you know Oscar Torre. He's an actor in L.A. He's done a lot of work. People, if they saw his face, would know who he is. He's been in the Haves and the Have-Nots. He's been in all kinds of films, Cold Case, all those films
Cool.
and TV shows. But Oscar used to say, and he told us this on Actors Think Tank, that he begins every day with a gratitude list. And he does that because that's the way he gets a positive mindset in the mornings. And so I journal a little bit in the mornings, but the other thing I do, a recent relationship I had that did not last as long as I hoped it would, but God bless her. She taught me to play some word games in the morning, New York
Mm.
Times word games,
Stimulate your brain a little bit.
just to stimulate me and to get a little victory under my belt each morning. Because a little
Yeah.
victory makes a difference. And then the other thing
Yeah.
she taught me that I really never thought of because I'm not in that space in my head, she said, record the late night talk shows and play the monologues the next day, the next morning,
Mm.
because Jimmy Kimmel, Jimmy Fallon, Seth Meyers, Stephen Colbert. These guys are funnier than heck. And
Mm-hmm.
so, in a quiet moment when I'm not really feeling very good, I will pull up last night's Jimmy Kimmel, and for 15 minutes I laughed my ass off. And it
Yeah.
whoosh. So those are the ways that I try to stimulate the thought process and not let myself. And then, of course, you book a job. I mean, 3 days ago, I got an email, or 2 days ago, I got an email. I got to go to Miami on Monday morning. God bless them.
Cool.
I went
Sweet.
to Miami for 3 days completely out of the blue.
Nice.
So I'm excited,
That's
So,
awesome.
yeah, I mean, and that's the stuff. So you build your life on these things. And I don't want to sound like a melancholy here.
Not at all, dude.
But,
Not at all.
that's the truth. I mean, life is ups, life is downs. And
Yeah.
trying to find that middle ground. But I would say if there's any takeaway from all of this, it's that you level out the ups and downs by thinking about other people and not about yourself. And you and I talked enough to know that that's what I like to talk about. That's what I like to do. That's what Actors Think Tank is. That's what Workforce was.
Totally.
That's what Camino was. Anybody who would watch that video in the end will notice that story is not about me. That story is about the other 18 pilgrims that I talked or heard their stories. And I think y'all, and you doing this, for example, is the same thing. You're digging into other people's lives. And by that, it's cathartic. I mean, it's therapeutic for me to talk like this. So give to somebody else, and you'll find that it's going to bounce back. It's a boomerang. And the boomerang
Totally, man.
In the end,
Yeah, I agree, man. And I think you're somebody who really practices what he preaches. And I've always really admired you because of that. And although our relationship has been short lived, it's felt very, very full since knowing you. And I always feel very grateful to just get on a chat with you and talk to you because you're so filled with this like different kind of energy that I look forward to having with myself eventually, that like I'm still trying to navigate my way towards. You have such a like you were even just talking about, saving the monologues and watching them to get a little joy and doing some journals and gratitude lists and stuff. And it's like, it doesn't always have to be as complicated as we make it.
No,
We can really simplify this stuff.
absolutely. And by the way, those ideas are stolen from someone else.
Of course.
I mean,
it's all recycled.
I laugh because it was a 4-month relationship to somebody that I forever want to know and be close to.
Yeah.
And what did I get from that woman? I got the most beautiful thought processes. And
that's cool.
I mean, all we got to do is take stock in all the people that we know, what they give us, what they don't give us, and register that with them and have honest conversations with them. Because
totally, man.
I had a call with somebody yesterday. This is interesting. And I don't want to go too long. So
no, you're good, man.
So somebody in Actors Think Tank calls me up about a few weeks ago and says, "Hey, I'm working on a project. I need something in L.A. and blah 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 blah. Do you know anybody?" And you probably know what my thought was. My thought was, yeah, I know people, but so do you. You met them through Actors Think Tank,
right?
So I called her on the phone and I said, I can help you, but so can some people.
Yeah.
And so anyway, long story short, I connected with several people in Los Angeles who immediately replied back. Why? Because people want to help people.
Right.
They do. And so that person replied back, and within 48 hours, this young woman, who's wonderful, incredibly talented actress, really, really enthusiastic about life in general, and thirdly, she's totally committed to the other things that she's doing to build her career. Not just the acting stuff, but the production work and stuff. Anyway, I chatted with her yesterday and said, "So what happened when you called up so and so and to thank him and stuff?" And she said, "Oh, I meant to send him a note, and I didn't. Now you mention it." And I said, "Well, that's probably something." And goes, "Oh my gosh." She says, "Yeah. People want to help, but they also want to be acknowledged for helping."
Totally.
And when you bring something to somebody, and she says, "Well, I was asking for a favor," I said, "No, you weren't. You were offering up an opportunity for them to help someone else.
Yeah.
And deep down, that is the human element.
Hmm.
I mean, it's hidden in some people. There's cruel people out there too. There's bad people out there, but it's deep down in the human element. The desire to help other people is not just there; it's alive and well. It's happening,
Right.
and it's a really cool thing. And that's like I said, I stole these ideas from other people. I repurposed them, and for that, I love those people. You know, Oscar Torre and my friend, and you know,
For sure.
and this
I mean,
it's good for me.
to, yeah, I mean, like people want to help each other, but people want to help and be helped as well. And I think, excuse me, you know, a big lesson to learn is like, you don't know until you ask. Like, you just gotta sometimes just like go out of your way. I think so many people, like, imagine how many talented people there are in the world that aren't doing anything because they have just been too afraid to even like ask the question of, can I? You know, may I? Like, yes, you may,
Yeah.
but like you have to ask, because nobody's just gonna like put a silver platter in front of you and say, hey, here's your your star on the Hollywood Boulevard and your big giant acting. That's never gonna happen.
Yeah.
um in fact, like, even a small career is never just going to be passed to you. You know, everything you have to work for. And I just found that I had to get out of my own way and just start asking for help, because yes, people do want to help, but also like giving credit where credit's due, and reciprocating, and being like, remembering who's been there along the way
Mm-hmm.
to help you, to guide you, and to give back whenever you can, and to give back in all the ways that you can, receive, but also give. And just like, that's the order of life, in my opinion. If you can, like, if we can figure out ways to do that better with each other, like, hey, look, like, I appreciate you for coming on this podcast today, Rich. I'm going to try my best now to like come back around and give you something back in exchange. However that works. It doesn't have to be a object or like a physical gift. It's like whatever I can do. I stupidly said I knew Rick Steves the other day. I was like, yeah, my dad's best friends with this guy.
Yeah,
And like, I was like, yeah, we can help you with the travel blog. And then, of course I was just like, I guess I don't know where I got that idea. But regardless, like, I say that to say that I'm trying to keep things in mind all the time for the people that are there for me, so that I can be there for them. And it's just like, this is a community. We are a community. Like, your Actors Think Tank is a community, and you're like, look, I'm creating relationships and resources through those relationships. You don't need to ask me for help. You already have the help right at your hands. It's right there.
well, the other thing is that when you address other people, um, you're not asking them for a favor. You're not
Right.
by saying, "Do you need fill in the blank?" They might say no, but what I do need is the da 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 da. Well, maybe you know five people that can do da 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 da,
Mm-hmm.
or maybe
Yeah.
you'd like to spend the day on set. We talked to
Yeah.
the producer on earlier this week on Actors Think Tank, and she said, there are days when I don't have something going on, or 4 or 5 of my actors don't have something going on, and I will call a producer and say, "Do you need any extra standby actors or extras? Because I've got some people that are willing to just, and for little or no money, in the end, but the being on set and being seen and being recognized as being professional, well, suddenly you've started something there. You've started this acknowledgement of, oh, yeah, she's got these resources. So you've done
Mm-hmm.
them a favor. And that's what people don't remember. You have to say that you're not asking for a favor. And people who don't reply to emails, it is what it is. Everybody's got their own thing. And you just accept it, acknowledge it, and not get lost in it. And
Right.
you did your best. And, but do you need? How can I help you? Is not about you. It's about them. And if you start
Right.
asking questions to people about them,
Yeah.
you get further. You just get a lot further in life.
Yeah. Quit overcomplicating everything, and just ask how you can be of service and how other people can help you. And it's just like, we can simplify this a lot easier if we just are more straightforward with all of this stuff, and just try to like get into it, rather than being like, I don't know, maybe Rich might be able to help me, but I feel kind of bad because like if I ask him, then like maybe he's gonna. It's just like, just
Yeah,
do what you're compelled to do.
Yep.
And be a good person about it, you know,
Absolutely.
and try to have a healthy balance as you move through it, because, you know, it's the hardest thing to do. Um, Dude, Rich, I'm very grateful to be in your orbit, man. You're a legend, man. You're like such a wealth of cool insight and information. I really like do look up to you. I think you're a role model of sorts for me, and somewhat of a like unofficial mentor. I like really do see you as being somebody that um, like not only just in this business, but just like in life, has like a really, really solid head on your shoulders. And um, you've always just been so kind to me, just with like stuff outside of the questions and the thoughts about like, oh man, like I'm, you know, struggling here or whatever. And yeah, you're so gracious with your time and energy, and it's like very obvious and clear that you are a giver and you're trying to be of service to other people. It's really the reason that I wanted to have you on here, because I think you are an inspiration for a lot of people, and a lot of people can learn a lot from you. And I'm just proud of the work that you're continuing to do, man. Like the work that you're, you know, continuing to put your right foot forward in, and all of the effort that you're making in kind of like being an excellent professional, but also an excellent person and an excellent father and an excellent friend, and, you know, just guy in general. You said that, you just like, I'm just trying to be a good guy. And I think a lot more of us can take some notes from your playbook, because
I,
it's
you're very kind, and in the end, I greatly appreciate it. I mean, to me, this is a wonderful experience to be able to think and get other people's thoughts and yours in this case and so forth. But I will say that at no point am I impressed by myself. And
yeah,
like
of course not.
I see my own weaknesses and my own needs and my own wants. But I do believe, because of the upbringing in my family, that best way to get what you need or want in life is to be of service to others in some way, shape, or form, whether it's emotional or financial or professional or whatever. So I'm always open to give what I got, because it's not it's not a ton, but what it is, it's there. And perspective sometimes is all some people need. So I'm happy to chat anytime you want. You know that.
Well, your humility is very infectious, my friend. So it's it's absorbed through me, and I will in turn try to pay it forward with myself and the work that I try to do, and
Mhm.
you know, the guy that I try to be in this world as well. And, you know, I'm not worried about us. We're going to be pals for forever, and we're going to try to make some stuff, and hopefully we have some projects that we can both bring each other onto. And I just think it's a matter of time before, you know, cool creative things start coming our way. And I think your like acting career is going to do something really surprising for you. Maybe it won't be surprising, because it'll be something that's just like, yeah, about damn time. Um, but I see really wonderful things, man, for you coming your way, and I'm excited to watch the growth all unfold.
Good. Well, let's keep helping each other, and I'm here when you need me, buddy.
Absolutely, Rich. Thanks so much for doing this with me, man. I appreciate it. And uh, if you want to follow this guy, I'll put all the notes in the bottom of the page, whatever. I don't even ever talk about this stuff like that. I'm going to do that, but I will. I'll share all of your accomplishments and links and all that kind of stuff. Um, Rich is somebody to follow, and I think everybody needs to practice being a little more like him every once in a while. All right,
Thank you.
people. Thanks, Rich. Appreciate you, man. We'll talk soon, bud. Okay.
Take care, Julian. Bye bye.
Take care, man. Bye. Now that's what I'm talking about.